In breaking news today, 6 years after his death, Steve Jobs was correct. Adobe is going to kill off their Flash player for good. That's right, their web plugin is no longer going to be available moving forward. More news after the break. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Macintosh Review. Yep, you guys heard the intro correctly. Today, Adobe actually released news that they plan to stop updating and distributing their Flash player by the end of 2020, which is actually a 2.5-year time frame between now and then. Now, along with this, Adobe is actually encouraging web developers and content creators to switch from Flash-based content to the new HTML5 and WebGL standards that we see today. Now, I wanted to make this video because I was thinking a lot about Steve Jobs today when I saw this news, guys, and I think that Adobe's news today is extremely ironic, and I just want to bring you guys back to 2010, before Steve Jobs actually passed away in 2011, and I want to bring you back to what he actually said about Adobe Flash. Now, in April 2010, Steve Jobs actually published a letter on Apple.com, actually just slamming Adobe Flash with 6 different points as to why he did not think it was a good move to move forward with Adobe Flash into the future of the internet. Steve basically believed that the Adobe Flash player was the web format created for the PC era, but when it comes to mobile, including the iPhone, iPad, and iPod Touch, along with touch interfaces and open web standards, Adobe Flash was not actually fit. The 6 points that Steve Jobs actually pointed to in where Adobe Flash Player actually fell short is openness, the full web, reliability, security and performance, battery life, touch, and the substandard quality of the development tools for the internet. Now, Steve believed that actually by moving forward with this web standard of Flash Player, the iPhone would have actually substandard applications, and he thought it would actually hinder the overall iOS experience, which is actually extremely interesting. Back in 2010, Steve Jobs actually pushed to use HTML5, CSS, and JavaScript, and pushed developers to move away from Flash Player, citing the fact that you could use so many different services without these web standards on iOS. Flash Player has never been used in iOS, guys, and Steve Jobs cited that you can watch YouTube, use Netflix, use plenty of App Store games and entertainment titles through the App Store without Flash Player. He also cited that Macs actually have crashed a lot and have some very serious security records when it comes to Adobe Flash. Mainly, the security flaws in Macs were, in Steve Jobs' opinion, due to Flash Player. He also said that Flash websites need to be rewritten to be used on the iPhone and the iPad. And lastly, he did say that the low power mode needed on touch devices and mobile devices was essential, and Flash Player was not going to help with these areas in terms of mobility moving forward. Now, I actually did make a video way back when showing you guys how to install Flash Player on iOS devices. It's actually one of my most popular videos here on YouTube, guys. Android actually had Flash Player available, and a lot of people thought iOS was eventually going to move in that direction. However, we have never had Flash Player on iOS. It has never been included, and overall, many websites have been updated to HTML5, WebGL, just for this reason, guys, just because Steve Jobs never allowed Flash Player on iOS. So just to read you guys Adobe's real official statement in quotes, they said, in collaboration with several of our tech partners, including Apple, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, and Mozilla, Adobe is planning the end of life Flash. Specifically, we will stop updating and distributing the Flash Player at the end of 2020 and encourage content creators to migrate any existing Flash content to these new open formats. Now, I think, guys, this is just extremely ironic based on what Steve Jobs said. He got so much heat for back in 2010 saying what he did about Adobe Flash Player. People were criticizing him. They were like, it's the standard. Our generation who played Flash games on the internet and viewed Flash websites all the time really wanted Flash on the iPhone, and Steve Jobs just didn't allow us to have that. Ironically, because he did not allow Flash Player on the iPhone, a lot of web developers recoded their websites to HTML5 and a compatible version for the iPhone, iPad, and iPod Touch. And a lot of people are speculating this is why Adobe Flash Player is now going to shut down. So I was thinking a lot about Steve Jobs today, guys, because even now, even 6 years after his death, guys, this is something that he really championed. Nobody else thought about, but now it's become the standard, and Adobe is actually phasing out Flash Player, which is absolutely ironic, I think. It's just interesting to see someone on, even when they have passed away, actually being a champion for a movement that a lot of people didn't think was going to actually happen. So in terms of actual Flash Player, guys, they are phasing it out by 2020, but the 2.5-year time frame is so that developers and companies know this is coming. They don't want to just do it immediately because Flash would just immediately stop working, which would be annoying. They're giving people time to adapt over the 2.5 years, and almost everything will move into HTML5 at this point. Apple also released a statement regarding Adobe getting rid of Flash Player. I quote, "Apple users have been experiencing the web without Flash for some time. iPhone, iPad, and iPod Touch never supported Flash. For the Mac, the transition from Flash began in 2010 when Flash was no longer pre-installed. Today, if users install Flash, it remains off by default, and Safari requires explicit approval on each website before running the Flash plugin." So really, guys, this probably won't change your overall experience, but I just thought this was extremely ironic, as Steve Jobs was a huge champion of moving away from Flash, and now Adobe actually is. So in my mind, I credit Steve Jobs with a little bit of credit at least here. So Steve, if you're watching this video, you were right all along. Anyway, be sure to subscribe for more iOS news here, guys, about the iPhone, iPad, iPod Touch, all things Apple. Also be sure to follow my Twitter, Facebook, Google+, website page, Instagram, and other links down in the description. Those are great ways to get in touch with me. And be sure to leave this video a thumbs up for Steve Jobs actually predicting this 6 years ago. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. And as always, thank you for watching. Stay awesome, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.